the people that want to mow 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 a week, put an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a week in their pocket. That really is the best contractor fit for a homeowner. Your big companies that have 10, 20, 30 employees, kind of like what I used to run, hate GreenPal because the crew foreman that they're paying $20 an hour to quits, downloads our app, and is now making $75 an hour. And that's really what we're in the business to do, is to expand that pie. If it's 500,000, get it to $1 million in terms of total addressable market, and make it to where more people who want to pay off student loan debt, want to pay off credit card debt, want to save up for a house, can just jump on the GreenPal app and put an extra $50,000 a year in their pocket.
Welcome to Future Driven. I'm Adam Lejeune-Kopp, and on this podcast, we talk about challenges and wins in business. See the vision, drive the future. Welcome to episode 37 of the Future Driven podcast. I'm really excited to have Bryan Clayton from GreenPal on the show. Bryan, thanks so much for jumping on.
Adam, thanks for having me on your show. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, I checked out your website. Pretty interesting concept and really excited to hear about GreenPal. But let's kind of take me back a little bit. Kind of where did you get started? What led you to where you are today? Give us a little background.
Yeah, so just to offer some context, currently CEO, co-founder of GreenPal, which is an app that is the Uber for lawn mowing. So homeowner needs their lawn mowed, rather than calling around, they just download our app. Somebody comes out and takes care of it for them. GreenPal is a 10-year overnight success, been at this thing for almost a decade. And now we have 300,000 users using the app to get their lawn mowed, doing multiple 8 figures a year from revenue, and self-funded. And so I guess you could say we got to where we are today by not giving up. And before GreenPal, I actually had a landscaping business. I actually mowed yards for a living for 15 years. I started a grass cutting service in high school as a way to make extra cash, and grew a little lawn mowing business into a big business. Eventually got that company over 150 employees. It was doing over $10 million a year in revenue, one of the largest landscaping companies in the Southeast, and sold it in 2013, and took some time off after that and got bored. I thought, well, what now? What should I do with my life now? And I thought, well, I'm going to start a tech company, because how hard could that be? And it was kind of naivete as an asset. Didn't know what I didn't know, but recruited 2 co-founders, and we got in the trenches and started working on this app that now is the Uber for lawn mowing. And that's 22 years of entrepreneurship from the blue collar side and now the tech side in one industry.
That's awesome. Well, I like that where you are today as a result of all the hard work and the effort that you put in. Obviously, you had some immediate result in 2013 when you sold the company, and that was great, but it gave you the background and the knowledge to be able to go to this next venture, right? So yeah,
I think authenticity can be a competitive advantage. If no matter what you're trying to do, if you're trying to innovate and create a breakthrough and create a new piece of technology in a space, it can be helpful to be solving your own problem. And that was definitely the case for us.
So how do you, back when you had the landscaping company, how did you challenge, or how did you solve the challenge of seasonality? Because that must have been a big part of a big challenge back then.
Yeah, seasonality is a tough dynamic for the landscaping business. There's a couple of ways to deal with it. If you're small, if you only have 1 or 2 employees, you do by any means necessary. You try to sell into your client base whatever other adjacent services they might need during the off season. So I went through that phase, and we would heavily discount work. Didn't matter what it was. Garage clean outs, gutter cleaning, snow removal, repairs around the house, whatever. We would do whatever we had to do to keep the lights on through the months of December, January, and February. Yep. As you get bigger, you start to sell into commercial contracts. So shopping centers, office parks, airports, apartment complexes, and those folks need maintenance year round. Even if the grass isn't growing, they still need somebody to spruce things up. And so as the business scales, you can solve that seasonality problem. But in early days, building that first landscaping company was definitely a challenge. And it's a challenge for our service today. We do close to $30 million a year in revenue, but there's 3 or 4 months out of the year where that almost flatlines. and we handle it just by managing our cash flow. We almost stock up a pile of cash every fall to get through the winter.
Oh, that's great. So, and before we leave the previous company, when did you start that? And I know you sold in 13, but when did you start that?
Yeah. Started that officially started in 1995 when I was 15 years old, when my dad forced me to go mow the neighbor's yard one day. So I was forced into the business, I guess you could say. But I kind of dabbled in it as a kid, as a teenager, all through high school. And I guess you could say I really got official with the business in 1998 when I started business school. And I started applying the things I was learning in business school to my little small business. And when I graduated college, I made a formal business plan and decided I wanted to scale that company. I saw it as my lane to make something of myself, and I saw it as my path to go places in life that maybe I couldn't do without a business. And so my landscaping company kind of took me through that journey and brought me to places I never would have been able to go.
That's awesome. So 15 years from solopreneur to 150 employees. How good did that feel?
It was very challenging. It was at times almost miserable, to be honest. Running a business of that size in that industry is really, really hard. Anybody that's dealing with like a service-based business that particularly revolves around manual labor can empathize. It's a hard business. It's one that's hand to hand. It's hand to hand combat. It's a full contact sport. And there was highs and there was lows, but that's what made the story interesting. And that's what kind of made us a better business. And that's what gave me the skills and the experience to then tackle my second business, GreenPal, which is a tech business. I started that business thinking it would be easier. It's actually 10 times harder. And so, it's one of those things, business is challenging, and that's one of the beautiful things about it.
Oh, that's awesome. So when did you officially start GreenPal then? If you wrap things up in 2013, you said you took a little bit of time off.
Yep.
Kind of, was happy and sad at the same time, I'm sure, trying to figure out kind of, how great the last 15 years were. Which, by the way, when you talk about the last 15 years, that first 15 years, you basically summed up entrepreneurship. The highs, the lows, the passion, the hard work, everything. That's what you have to do to kind of to grow the business. But so when did you make that shift and officially kind of start, even from a kind of ideation stage with GreenPal?
Yeah, selling the business was one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my life. It was really challenging. Took 2 years to get done. And when I got the deal done, and I kind of didn't have to work anymore, which was nice. But I started to learn about myself that I was wired to want to be in the game, that I was wired to want to be challenged, conquering new obstacles and overcoming challenges and building a team of smart people to work on a hard thing with me. And so the idea for GreenPal was pretty straightforward. It was one that I experienced every day running that landscaping business. Yeah. People would call my office every single day, 40, 50, sometimes many as 100 people would call our office every day wanting us to do their basic lawn mowing services. But we no longer did those services because we kind of outgrew that as a business. And so we had to kind of refer them out to smaller contractors. So in effect, we were this referral service. And I thought, well, that problem exists in the marketplace. Somebody needs to solve it. An app should solve it. Kind of like Uber and Airbnb and Lyft. I thought somebody's going to build this. Why not be me and my team? And it was naivete as an asset. I didn't understand how challenging building a technology product is and how challenging it is to build a new thing from scratch. I had never done that before. Right. And it was just one of those things. We got in there and gutted it out. Took 3 or 4 years to get anything going, but we celebrated the small wins, and those small wins compounded over time until we got an actual business underneath us.
And when did that really start to happen? The last couple of years?
Well, I guess you could say the first year we ended up with 22 customers. Half of them were my friends and family, but we had just enough people to tell us everywhere we sucked, everywhere the app sucked, everywhere that they wished the app would do something it didn't do, and where the experience broke down. And one thing we never saw was apathy. We never, our early users never told us, I don't want this. They never told us, I don't need this. And so we took that as validation to keep going. And then the second year, we ended with maybe 1,000 customers, and the third year, 10,000, and it just kept snowballing. And we kept doing things that were already working, doubling down on the things that were working, and just doing them better. And then this triaging around, like, what were the 2 or 3 main problems in the business at that given time? Let's solve those and then move on to the next thing. And looking back 20 years in business, it's really like a video game. You just work through one level at a time. Don't worry about, what's waiting on level 10, maybe Bowser or whatever. Like, that doesn't matter when you're on level 1, 2, or 3, and just work your ass off to get through every level. And that's what we did. And now here we're, doing thousands of transactions a day, self-funded, and we're profitable, which is not common in a tech business like ours. But I'm glad we stuck it out. I'm glad we got to where we are by not giving up.
And what's your current database of users today?
Over 300,000 people nationwide in the United States. We started off just in Nashville, Tennessee, and spent almost 4 years just in Nashville where we live.
Yeah. We
really understood one key thing in those early days was there's no need to scale something that's not working. And at the time, we were pissing off more people than we were making happy. And until we were able to invert that and make like 98% of the people that use the product delighted, we knew there was no reason to go into a second city. And so we got it dialed in, got it working well, and then started rolling it out city by city throughout the United States.
So it feels like you got 2 big challenges. Obviously, one, getting the end user to use and trust your product. But then 2 is building out a validated database of landscapers that will follow through and execute with your vision. How big is your database of landscapers, and how do you manage that quality control, if you will?
Great point. And yeah, we have 2 kind of customers almost. We have homeowners that need to get this service done, and we have service providers that need a better way to do business.
Right.
And we have to add value to both sides to make it to where we deliver 10 times more convenience than doing it in the analog, Wild West normal way of doing things. And so currently we have 32,000 contractors that use the platform to run their business. But in the early days, it was like 10. And then it became 100, and then 500. And I personally knew the first 500 lawn care services that were using the app. Like, they had my cell number, and I would talk to them 7 days a week to understand their pain points, understand where we needed to take the platform, how we needed to make it better to where they could make more money with less hassle. So we really kind of solved for that first. We knew that we had to enable contractors to bolt onto our platform, get more properties, more lawns, more clients, get paid quicker, spend less time estimating, less time bookkeeping, less time organizing their routes, just be like a business in a box for them. We knew if we could make their life materially better, then and only then would we have a product to offer to consumers to kind of order them off the shelf, so to speak.
Right.
So that's how we approached it. And I think a lot of multi-sided marketplaces get that wrong. They look at service providers as like a fungible commodity, almost like an Uber driver. And many services are not like that. You have to really solve for the vendor first. And so that's how we did it. And so in the early days, vetting around quality and all of these things was very much like a hand-cranking, the hand-to-hand combat process. And then as we grew, we then began to layer in ways to automate that. And so today, the way it looks like, with tens of thousands of these folks using the platform, we have a minimal threshold for them to even join. They have to undergo a series of checks. We have to look at their equipment and make sure that they're up to speed and able to even perform the service. Then we grade them rigorously. We score them on how often do they show up on time, how often do they get booked for recurring services, what are their customers saying about them? How often do their customers fire them? How often do they reach out and speak to the customer before they service it? All sorts of dimensions we score these folks on, and then we surface and promote the good ones and demote and many times expel the bad ones that are not reliable. Because the main pain point we saw for consumers is I just want to get it done. Like, yeah, I mean, at a fair price, but they're not necessarily looking for the cheapest person. They just want somebody to show up on Thursday like they're supposed to and do a good job. And as simple as that sounds, that's the problem we solve. Because the case of the disappearing lawn guy is very real. You might hire somebody, they show up or don't, and then they quit showing up, or they do a good job at first and they stop doing a good job. Our platform is kind of a layer of accountability to make sure all those things happen smoothly.
Yeah, no, that's great. And plus the transaction on how to pay for the service, not always home, don't always want to have to write checks or pay cash or whatever. That's a big problem you're solving as well. Just kind of streamlining, making sure it's done and it's effective and it's good. So are there, I guess I kind of came to a couple of questions as you were talking there, but are there opportunities or do you rank the service providers within your platform? Kind of like with Airbnb, Superhosts, Lux Properties, et cetera. Do you have the same kind of methodology with your 32,000?
Absolutely, and it's an important piece of what we do. Well, there's different designations of service providers in terms of basic, intermediate, and elite, and so that's one way that we kind of surface the ones that are super performers and demote the ones that just don't care about doing a good job and expel those. But then we also, from like a gamification standpoint, have a leaderboard in every city that's public. And so contractors can see how they're doing against their competition. Who's earning how much money? Who's winning the most business? Who has the highest reliability rating? And that's a simple calculation of how often they show up on the days they're supposed to. And it's kind of a fun way for these guys that really care about doing a good job and being successful in this business to get a pat on the back. And the ones that aren't doing so well to really understand, I got to set my game up, or I need to get out of this business. Because nobody teaches us how to run a small business. Nobody teaches contractors in the service industry how to run a small business, what it means to be punctual, what it means to be proactive, what it means to deliver good customer service. Our platform is designed to be like a coach in their pocket almost.
Right on. So does your technology, I know I went through your platform last night and plugged in my home address, kind of went through the whole experience, if you will, so I could get like a first person perspective. Do you use, what kind of technology do you use, I guess, for the system to kick out the right information to your service providers so that they can provide the bid, or is it automatic based on Google Maps? Like, kind of how does that work? I've got a 2.5 acre property, which, could be different than someone who's got a smaller property. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So part of the optimization, I guess you could say, the convenience we offer to both sides of the transaction is speed around quoting. Yep. As a homeowner, if you need to get 5 quotes for lawn mowing services, it could literally take you a week. You'd have to call maybe 20 or 30 of these folks, and they'd come out and look at it, maybe leave you something in the mailbox or text you something or email you something. And we turn that around in like minutes because we collect all the information we can about your property. So, of course, aerial imagery and street imagery of the yard, and we get that from Google and Zillow. And then also we have compiled a massive amount of data on a nationwide level from probably a dozen different sources on lot size. How big is the property? How many square feet is it? And then we surface that information to the vendor. And then also any other kind of information that you elect to put on there, like how long has it been since you last mowed, or what service level of quality are you looking for? Because not everybody wants a pristine job. If you're a real estate investor and you've got 40 properties all over town, which we have a lot of investors that use the platform, you really just want somebody to keep the city off your butt. Yeah. You just want somebody to knock it down and do a decent job. But if this is your personal residence, your pride and joy, you want something more along the lines of a professional gardener. And so we capture that kind of qualitative data, surface all of this to the vendor to where they can quote 10 of these properties in 5 minutes rather than 3 in an afternoon riding around town. And with gas, at $5 a gallon, that's part of the value proposition is quote more properties faster, win more business with less headache. And as a homeowner, you get 5 different quotes within minutes rather than hours or days. And then also you can compare these on a level you never could before. how do you really know if somebody's reliable by calling them off of Facebook or Yelp or Craigslist? You really don't. But on our platform, we tell you, hey, they show up 73% of the time, or they show up 98% of the time. Or they show up whenever they want to, but hey, they're the cheapest. Maybe you want to hire them. We let you decide.
Yeah, you got here, the two quotes that I got, 2,622 reviews, 100% reliability rating, 59% of users booked them again. So, that's great data that, I said all that and I didn't even look at the company name, right? I'm looking at, as a homeowner, that's what I'm looking for. Right. So
right. And you really can't deliver that unless you're in the middle of the transaction. And so, you can go to Angie's List or Home Advisor or Thumbtack or Craigslist or Facebook or Yelp, and there's no shortage of names and numbers. These are static repositories where you can dial for dollars, but you kind of have to be in the middle of the transaction to understand who's reliable, who's not, who's getting booked again, and then capture also the qualitative star rating that homeowners give them. And it's only because we have focused on just this one service, this one use case, this one chore for a decade, can we deliver that? If we had tried to be the best at locksmithing or pressure washing or pool service or landscaping or other things, we wouldn't be able to deliver that kind of rich experience. So focusing on just lawn mowing has been key to our strategy.
Okay. So that was going to kind of lead into the next question, which kind of leads into what's next. But at what point do you pivot to retaining walls, patio work, pressure washing, all the auxiliary stuff? And as a follow-up, how do you protect yourself that you remain with the service provider, and the service provider doesn't just on the side now start working with me as a homeowner to do other things and cut out, GreenPal in the middle?
Yeah, those are two really good questions. I'll start with the second one. So that's the fancy way to describe it is called platform disintermediation. So it means, you meet on the platform and then you conduct business off the platform.
Right.
The way we tackle that is we create lock-in and make it a no-brainer for contractors to run their whole business on the platform. So for them, it's a never-ending repository of new customers, and then all the information about their business accumulates there. So it's a CRM, all of their routes organized there. They get paid within 24 hours. And so for them to do it the old way, this doesn't make any sense. It'd be kind of like driving to the airport with your Uber, and then like your Uber stopping short like 5 minutes, said, hey, I can cancel and pull over and you can pay me cash and we can both save $1. And, you just wouldn't do that. And so that's kind of, well, we're not uber good, but we're pretty darn close in terms of it just doesn't make any sense for the contractor to cancel it and then send you a Venmo and then you hope you pay him and all of that. And then the other thing is, guess what? Now you haven't booked him for ongoing services. And so his ratings plummet because he's not getting booked for recurring services.
Got it.
And so he's not going to do very well on the platform anyway, because that's the key metric that we have is if you get hired, 80% of the time you should get booked for the season if you're any good. Yeah. And so if you're not good, you got to go, because we only promote the best lawn care services to our consumers. The first question around, how do you place your bets in terms of going wide versus going deep?
Yeah.
And I think for us, continuing to go deep until we reach like a point of diminishing returns is our strategy. We're still very much a drop in the bucket for how much grass gets cut in the United States. We're doing close to $30 million a year, but I've seen statistics that it's anywhere from a $60 to $100 billion a year industry. So we're just going to keep going until we're the default way that most people get this thing done. And the same way that you would say Uber to the airport or DoorDash your Chinese food or Instacart your groceries, GreenPal needs to be in that lexicon of the English language in terms of just get a GreenPal to cut your grass.
Right on. So what do you think I know the users is millions, but what do you think your database of service providers can get to? You're at 32,000, at what point Are you at 100,000? Well, I guess better question is, how many service providers do you believe are in the United States today that fit within the GreenPal model?
I believe there's several 100,000. Nobody really knows because nobody quantifies this stuff, but I've seen stats as low as 100,000. I think that's way low. And I've seen some as high as 1 million. Some interesting proxies for this are Facebook groups. So there's Facebook groups that cater to the lawn mowing business. And these are folks that make their living in the lawn mowing business who are members of these groups. There's some that have 90,000 members. Wow. And so to me, that indicates that there could be 1 million people who make a living mowing yards. And for us, it's our job to put more people in the lawn mowing business and to lower the barriers to entry to get into the business. We want to grow that pie and almost help the side hustlers, I guess you could say, the people that want to mow 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 a week, put an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a week in their pocket. That really is the best contractor fit for a homeowner. Your big companies that have 10, 20, 30 employees, kind of like what I used to run, hate GreenPal because the crew foreman that they're paying $20 an hour to quits, downloads our app, and is now making $75 an hour. And that's really what we're in the business to do, is to expand that pie. If it's 500,000, get it to 1 million in terms of total addressable market, and make it to where more people who want to pay off student loan debt, want to pay off credit card debt, want to save up for a house, can just jump on the GreenPal app and put an extra 50 grand a year in their pocket.
Right on. So it's the irony of you spent the early 2000s building a business model that now your new business model is to crush that previous model. But all with, that shows, big kudos to you with shifting with the times, right? Early 2000, we didn't have this ability. Now heading into 2030, you're making that ability happen in the household name.
Yeah. And, the thing is, those big guys, they can go after the big 6-figure contracts. That's not the business we're in. We're in the $35 residential lawn mowing. So they're really two different businesses. Right. They'll be fine. But where it does hurt them is poaches their labor, and labor is tight. But if you're busting your butt 12 hours a day mowing grass for a big company, making $20 an hour, why not do it for yourself with an app? And the app takes care of all the headache for you, and you can make 3 times the money. That's the main thing where it hurts them. But what we care about is helping folks that want to work hard, make material income in this industry. That's why we do what we do. Well,
then that goes back to your going deep, staying specific to this service, because once you get out of this service, that's when you start to get into the bigger companies doing other projects, which is where their profit margin is, which is where their focus is. And you've got that experience because all the things that you said no to and referred out is the service that you're focused on here with GreenPal.
That's right. And that's where I think we can add the most value. I really think we can make the whole thing run 10 times more efficient than it does normally. And so that's what we're focusing on.
Right on. Well, we've basically already shifted there, but you just kind of wrap all this up, Bryan, what is the future? What is the next 5 to 10 years for you at GreenPal?
Real simple. We need to get over $100 million a year in revenue flowing through the platform, and we need to get to 1 million users. Right now, we're at 30 and 300,000. I think we can do it, and I'm having fun, and I'm going to run this business as long as I'm having fun. I've busted, my team and I have busted our butts on this thing for a decade, but I haven't worked a day in 10 years. And so the day I quit having fun is the day I either sell it or get a professional CEO, but I'm enjoying it.
Love it. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Bryan. I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Adam, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome, man.